Well, hey, this is Rhonda Simmons, Dr. Rhonda Simmons. I always forget that part sometimes. But I'm so glad to be here with you for another edition of Empowered Heart to Heart. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So glad that you are here. I'm telling you, we're in for a treat today. And I just want to tell you how to get ready for it because you won't want to miss this. Make sure you're listening. First of all, make sure that you like, comment, and share this video if you're watching on our YouTube channel, or make sure that you share this podcast episode. Let people know what you're listening to because this is a fireside chat. That's why I named it Heart to Heart, and you will be empowered at the end of this episode. I promise you. So for our YouTube channel, also make sure you subscribe and hit the notification button so that you'll be notified every single time I upload a new video. Be sure you connect with us on our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And our handle is TSEFIORG. I know that's a lot. It's all one word, but that's the acronym for the Simmons Empowerment Foundation Incorporated, of which I am the founder and CEO. And so we'll be glad to talk with you. And I'm just glad to have you here today. And so I am so excited. And I say this every time I have a new person to interview. I have met some of the best people this side of heaven. If you've been following me on my podcast, you know I say that every time, but it's true. I've met people from all over the globe. We've gone global. It's been over a year now since we went global. Our podcast has been in existence for 2 years. We've got 131 episodes. I think this is 132 today. And so I am so excited that we're going strong. And today I have this wonderful special guest on our show today, Dr. Lani Jones. She is a seasoned clinical psychologist and performance advisor with a passion for helping high achieving individuals unlock their full potential. Wow, that's great. This is going to be fire. So you want to make sure you're listening. She is an expert in managing stress, anxiety, ADHD, and trauma. And Dr. Jones understands the complexities of navigating all spheres of life. Well, hello, this is going to apply to all of us today. In addition to providing one-on-one coaching and consulting services, she specializes in empowering leaders to define their own version of success and show up just as successfully in the boardroom as in the living room. I am loving that. Let me just bring her right onto the stage right now. Good morning. Hello, Dr. Jones. How are you?
Good morning. I am well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Yes, I'm excited too. I guess you can tell. I'm just so impressed with your background and all of your training. But out of all of the career choices, how I have a question. I guess it's a double question. How did you end up deciding to be a clinical psychologist and then coupling that with coaching?
So, I have not been a person who had my whole life planned out. I had no intent of ever doing a doctorate. I started undergrad with other various medical degrees and PT and OT. And then it was kind of one degree at a time, like, oops, yeah, don't want to do that. Maybe we should find something else. Oh, let's do that. Oh, let's do something else. And so I knew I wanted to help people, probably something in the medical profession. And so that's how I ended up as a clinical psychologist, which I love because it's all about relationships and people, and the skills just go everywhere, every sector of life. And then in terms of getting over to the coaching consulting side, COVID changed a lot of things for everyone. And so I've really been trained as a testing psychologist, like testing for autism, ADHD, things like that. And then when COVID hit, the need was therapy. And we were all, behind screens and in our homes and started doing much more therapy than I anticipated. But I happened to get this caseload of these really incredible, high achieving women who were working in the corporate world or they were business owners. And some days I'd leave those sessions and be like, is that therapy or are we coaching here? Like there's a lot of gray area happening. And these were the women who showed up and were very action oriented. Like, here's the problem. What's the game plan? And that's very much my personality too. And so just with some changes in the mental health field and wondering how can I show up and work with this group, and coaching really seems like the avenue, because in therapy it's like, oh, your life blew up but you already had your 50-minute session for the week, so sorry, see you next week, versus how could I be more present and be more relational and really meet them where they are, and coaching and consulting seemed like the avenue to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it seems like as we build our businesses, um, sometimes business owners are more concerned about the revenue than the connections that they make. And I love how you are so connection driven. That's a fantastic trait.
Thanks. I really believe in any business you're in, if it's people first, relationship first, the revenue is going to follow. It's when you
Absolutely.
get away from that and you become the numbers focused or the product focused, then you start having revenue issues.
Yes, absolutely. You know, my background as a doctor is in education, and I live by the philosophy of people first. You know, no matter what research based strategies we may roll out in the district, the bottom line is it's the people who are going to walk it out. And if you don't take care of your people, then you're not going to get the results that you want. So I can totally relate to that. Um, so tell me, is there any common thread that you see amongst your high achieving women who you're servicing right now, like burnout or
Mhm.
things like that?
So I'm from part of the Bible Belt from Indiana. And so there's a lot of Christian undertones or some flavor, even depending on what you call yourself or what that looks like for you. And so, with a lot of these high achieving women, there's still oftentimes some level of guilt or shame to even say out loud and really own, hey, I really love my career and I am really passionate about this and I want to go hard at this, or I want to make this a priority, but I love my kids too. And so like how do I have it both? You know, how the old adage, the old question of how do I have it all? And so oftentimes it's working through that topic or that theme of how do they, one, find the inner peace, but then two, how do they quiet the external critics too of, oh, you should have been there for that soccer game, or you should be on your phone less, or you aren't showing up enough for your kids, and really defining success, balance on their terms.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I love that you encourage them to really define their own success, because sometimes as coaches, you know, we have in our minds where this should end up, but that's not true coaching because it has to be defined by the client. And so the work that you're doing is tremendous. So where do you see yourself, you know, in the next few years with your coaching practice and your clinical psychology practice?
So with specifically my private practice, I'm not taking on any new patients. So that's just kind of in the holding mode right now, as I really focus on the coaching consulting side of things. So at the moment, I'm all one-to-one or small group within the coaching. So hopefully in a couple years, I have more offerings, opening up more access to courses or a book or workshops, more accessibility on a larger scale.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds exciting. My brain is just churning away here because as I like to say to some of my friends, I create, I don't duplicate. And I'm just envisioning so many things for you and how God is just going to bless your coaching business and everything that you set your hands to. This is a Christian podcast, so I don't apologize for bringing God into it because without Him, we can do nothing. And so I'm super excited about what you're doing and the passion with which you're doing it. So, how do you balance it all with what you're doing?
I think in terms of balance, oftentimes the women I'm working with, we talk about seasons. And so if there is no end in sight, or whatever the season is that you're in has been going on for years, then it's probably not a season. Because some seasons of our life, it could be, we're a tax accountant. And so tax season is just absolutely crazy. So, of course, yeah, family priorities, social life, personal life are going to fall to the wayside a little bit during that season. Or maybe you're in a caregiving role for a parent or another family member. And so, in that season of caregiving, yeah, a lot of other things are going to take the back seat as well. And so that really helps me personally think through things of, okay, this is a season. And so I'm not stuck here forever. This is time limited. It's temporary. Might go on a little longer than I want to, but there is an end to it. And so just knowing, okay, my priorities have to shift. And so oftentimes we talk about our priorities shifting in seasons. Sometimes for your career's got to be at the top. Then the family's got to be at the top, and whatever those different life circumstances that come in are.
Wow, that is a good analogy with seasons, um, because it's so important that we understand which season we're in and how to function in it. Because we do something different. We dress differently, for example, in winter than we do in summer. We adapt. And so I love that. I was an English teacher back in the day, and so vocabulary is very important to me.
I started as an English major initially.
Oh, wonderful.
I appreciate
Wonderful.
that.
Yes, yes. I'm glad we have so much in common. And so here we are, 2024. If you had to give a word of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Whew. I'd say just take a breath and relax a little bit. Like you don't have to have it all figured out. You don't have to meet all the demands of the external voices. Because I grew up very much in a environment that it was like, go get the safe job that has the salary, the benefits, like that's really the ultimate goal. And everything I'm doing most of my life, I started my career in corporate healthcare and then left that after a few years. And so since then have not had a salary and benefits, all that security. And so I would say, yeah, just take a breath while taking the risks. Like it's going to be okay. It might not look like you want it to or expect it to, but it's going to be okay.
Oh my goodness. Dr. Jones, let me tell you, you you just preached a whole sermon right there. Because walking by faith is just that, and I love your your audacity to do so. Even though it may not be popular with family and friends, you're doing what God has called you to do. And that is so important. Wow. Congratulations. Congratulations. So, one of the core core beliefs in the Simmons Empowerment Foundation is the word empowerment. And I like to ask our interviewees sometimes, what does that word mean to you?
Oh, great question. Um, I think in my work with these women, empowering them is helping them strip away the noise, helping them get to the core of who they are, where their identity lies, defining things for themselves. And that is how I just facilitate that empowerment. Ultimately, then it's up to them to take it and run with it. But I think in this day and age, one of our biggest enemies is just distraction because we are constantly distracted, even by well meaning loved ones, who are like, oh, do you really want to take that job? Do you want to make the move? Do you want to do this? Like, I believe they have good intentions. Most of our family does, but also seeing things from very limited scope of, hey, is God calling you to step out? Is he asking you to take this risk and you don't have all the answers? And so helping strip away, when we strip away the noise, the distractions are around us, then I think that's when we're truly empowered to step into our identity and whatever our mission is here on in our time.
Amen. Amen. Wow, that is so powerful. I'm just so impressed with our alignment here today. But I think I have another question, and I'm trying to articulate it here. My question really is, Dr. Jones, and you don't have to answer this question if you're not comfortable, but what is your why? What is your why?
It's it's taken me a while to articulate that. And even in this new season for me of building out this new business, transitioning from the practice, and I grew up with a trauma history. I grew up with some really bad theology, grew up in the church, but some lines of thinking that just weren't very biblical and really were pretty harmful and hurtful. And so, having had the lived experience also behind me of fighting for my own healing or fighting for the truth, I'm also a seminary student right now. And a big part of that was just, okay, why do I believe what I believe? Yeah, I've said my entire life I'm a Christian. My faith really hasn't wavered in that sense. But theologically, like, how is my understanding of God shaping my understanding of myself and who I am as someone who's created in his image? And so, having lived through that and sifted through the mud and trying to figure out the what is truth, that is really propelled me, spurred me on to, hey, I know other women are stuck in the same place too. And I just kind of want to help them sift through all the muck to get to the good stuff and get to the truth ultimately.
Wow. I knew there was more to the story, and I just sensed it. Um, and you mentioned trauma, and I'm not going to ask about the details of that trauma. What I am going to ask, though, is with doing the work for on yourself and in yourself, how did you know you were healed enough to help someone else?
Ooh, I think that's a really important distinction. Um, because I think in this day of social media too, we see a lot of people rushing out there and a lot of people thinking vulnerability or authenticity is just like spewing our whole story out there uncensored. And it's really not. Oftentimes it's not the healthy option for the person or it's not in their best interest. And so I don't think healing is never a checklist. This side of heaven, it's never a checklist, kind of like grief. Grief is just a messy entanglement, a yarn. And, one day you think you're fine, the next day you're not. And so I think getting to the place of knowing where my heart was in terms of anger or bitterness or resentment or forgiveness. Even forgiveness is a journey. Like oftentimes the young ones I work with trauma histories and they're trying to rush to get to that forgiveness stage, but yet as a child, like if you don't understand really what happened, like you can't forgive what you don't understand. And so sometimes some of that doesn't happen till an adult. And so being aware of your heart posture, just your ability when you talk through your story, when you start stepping out with those safe people in your sphere, okay, taking some stock of what was that like for me? Is there still something tugging in my heart I need to go work through? Because the other thing is too, healing does not happen in isolation. Obviously, as a clinical psychologist, I'm a huge proponent of professional help, whatever that looks like. There's a lot of great therapists out there with different titles and different capacities, also in the midst of community, because it doesn't happen as a silo in isolation. And then obviously too, some great spiritual wisdom, faith. And so I think all those three pieces are really key components to any healing journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You said some powerful things right there. Um, I love the fact that healing does not happen in isolation. In fact, to me, isolation is a dangerous place. It is a dangerous place. Um, and uh, going through, even though you're healed, because the fact of the matter, in very general terms, I don't want to say all people, but many people have had trauma in their lives. You
Mhm.
know, at one point or another, various kinds of trauma. Um, and even when you work through it and you get the healing, one of the things I've noticed in my own life is that I have to guard against triggers, um,
Mhm.
because some things will trigger like a past memory or a past emotion.
Mhm.
And in fact, I can give you an example. Um, I went through a divorce many years ago, and fast forward, 10 years, maybe 5 years, I don't know, from the divorce. I was working as an assistant principal, and it was a very hostile work environment.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know what it was about that environment that was so similar to the emotions I experienced going through my divorce. But every single emotion I went through in my divorce, I went through in this job.
Mhm.
And I remember the day, the specific day when I was triggered to the point of my worst day going through that. And I immediately walked back into my office and I said, okay, it's time to leave. That's how I knew it was time to look for another job, because I wasn't willing to go down that road again. And so I said all that to say that we have to guard against our triggers. You have to know, what situations could trigger you and be prepared for addressing them. And so I'm glad that you brought it up about, dealing with your trauma and getting that healing through community. Um, it helps to know that, hey, there is somebody else who's been through this. And if you can make it, then I guess I can make it too. It goes a long way. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing. Um, so with all that you're doing, and with not accepting any more patients, but handling the patients that you currently have in your private practice, and working in your coaching practice as well, how do you find time for you? How do you balance your many different wheels you have going on?
Once again, it goes back to that kind of season place of just thinking through, okay, what is the season? What is this immediate need here now? Now, sometimes, yeah, I love my work. And so I can get so caught up and forget to come up for a breath. And a couple of weeks ago, I kind of had that realization is like, whew, okay, I just need to take a day off here and go get kind of quiet and detached from things. I think probably as someone who's single and without kids, my schedule looks very different. I do work a lot of nights and weekends, but sometimes that's because I'm brunching for 3 hours on a Tuesday morning, or I'm playing with little ones in the afternoon, or, meeting friends in the middle of the workday. And so I don't have a traditional like 8 to 5 Monday through Friday schedule, but I know, hey, if I'm working on a Saturday night, it's because I probably played a little bit too much during the week. And so really it's about finding that balance, but then also after years of getting through what are the external expectations of what a strong worker is supposed to look like, or a dedicated worker, whatever titles we put on that. And so just saying, okay, in this season, this is the schedule that works for me and makes sense. But yeah, sometimes I also do need those reminders, like, oh yeah, we need to step back here and stop spinning the wheels so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm about to put it on the screen here. if it will let me. So if our viewers or our listeners want to get in contact with you, they can go to www.drlanijones.com. And the doctor is abbreviated DR. So for those that are listening, I'll also put it in the description of the podcast and the YouTube, because people can sign up, I think, for one-on-one coaching with you.
Yes. Yeah. On my website, there's a button for a free consult call because we're entering into a relationship. And so I want to make sure we're a good fit. And I want to give you the opportunity to ask all the questions of me and make sure you're comfortable. And so, yeah, I'm always going to meet one-on-one with anyone who wants to maybe entering that coaching consulting sphere with me.
Wonderful. That's great to hear. Well, Dr. Jones, I really appreciate your time today, and I am looking forward to hearing the great things that God is going to do for you and through you to help so many people, because we need it, whether we admit it or not, we need it.
We all do, all of us.
Yes, yes, and you are definitely needed for such a time as this. And so, if you'll hang out just for a moment in the waiting room, I'll be right with you while I wrap up the show. Okay?
Thank you.
All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you this was going to be a phenomenal, phenomenal interview. And I'm so glad to have had Dr. Jones on our show. It's so important that we destroy the stigma around mental health and getting the help that you need. Um, I grew up in an era where, man, just saying that makes me sound old, but I grew up in an era where, it was believed in church circles, well, God is a wonderful counselor, so you don't need to go to counseling and you don't need to get therapy. Um, and if you have Jesus, you have everything that you need. I totally agree with that statement. However, I need to talk to somebody sometimes, and it's important. And personally, I didn't even realize how important coaching and therapy was until I went through a life crisis. And I realized if I don't talk to somebody, I'm going to lose it. And so, if you are in that space right now, if you are in that place in your life where life is hard, really, really hard, and you don't know what to do, and you don't know who to turn to, you don't know who to trust, get in contact with Dr. Jones. She has the skill set, she has the training, and most importantly, she has the heart to talk with you and to help you reach that level of success that you want to see in your life. It's so important that you don't go through this alone. The enemy would love to isolate us and to keep us thinking that we're in this by ourselves. But the devil is a liar, because you are not alone. You have help. And Dr. Jones is here to help you. Reach out to her. Again, her web address is www.drlanijones.com. Reach out to her. You don't have to go through this by yourself. That's why she's here. That's why I'm here. We're here to help. We're here to help and guide you to that level of success that God wants you to have. So until the next time, be blessed, be encouraged, but most of all, be empowered. And I'll see you again on the next edition of Empowered Heart to Heart.